Okay. Okay. So a reference angle is the smallest angle that you can create with the x-axis. So when we look at, I like both of these diagrams, which is why I used them both. Depending on which quadrant you're in, the way you're going to approach it is different. So any angle in quadrant 1 is also going to be your reference angle. If it's in quadrant 2, so let's say, for example, we have 100 degree. We have 100 degrees, and we'll do some examples here together shortly. So if I have this angle here, the shortest distance back to the x-axis is going to be to go this direction, which is why I would use 180 and subtract that from 100. So my reference angle would be 80. If you're in quadrant 3, so notice that in quadrant 3, it's the angle minus 180. So whatever your angle is, minus 180 is your reference angle. And if you're in quadrant 4, it's 360 minus the angle. So these are the formulas on how to find your reference angles. And this just gives you a visualization. So here, when you're looking at this angle, the reference angle and the angle are the same. If it's in quadrant 2, see how this is my angle. This blue part represents my angle, but that little bitty, this red angle will be my reference angle, because it's the closest angle. It's the smallest angle with the x-axis. If you look at this diagram, notice how this blue angle is bigger than the red angle. And that's why the red angle would be my reference angle. Yes. So here you would do 180 minus the angle. Okay. In quadrant 3, if you have an angle in quadrant 3, you would take the angle minus 180 to get your reference angle. And if you're in quadrant 4, you would take 360 minus the angle. So let's go ahead and practice finding a few reference angles. Okay. I thought I had a blank page. 1 second. I don't. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead. I'm going to just off to the side. Give me a second. Let's practice finding the reference angles for a few, because you do have your first quiz a week from today. So a week from today is when we'll take our first quiz of the year. Now, finding the reference angle, it's just one question, but still, you know, we want to get an A or a B on that first test so we can start off strong. Okay, so let's find the reference angle. I want you to use your formulas to find the reference angle for the following angles. So if I tell you, for number 1, let's do 225 degrees. Find the reference angle for 130 degrees. Find the reference angle for 346 degrees. And find the reference angle for 50 degrees. So I'll take a minute and try to find all 4 reference angles. So you want to identify what quadrant you're in. And then you can use these formulas to help you find the reference angle. So take a minute and do that. I kind of like to sketch it. Go ahead and sketch your 225 degree angle. Show me with your fingers, what quadrant do you think that's going to fall in? Yes, it should be in the 3rd quadrant. Yep. So we'll say this is my angle. And the reference angle, so the 225-degree angle would be this, what I have marked in red. But my reference angle is the angle made with the closest angle to the x-axis. So that would be just little bitty part that I have in green. That little bitty part, you need to figure out the measure of that angle right there. So if you use the formula in the diagram that I gave you, it says that anytime you have an angle in the third quadrant, you want to take that angle and subtract 180. So if you take 225 minus 180, again, you don't get to use a calculator, then that should tell you your reference angle. So you have to take 225 minus 180. So we have our 5, and then we have to borrow from the 2, that becomes a 1, and this becomes a 12. So you have 12 minus 8, which is 45 degrees. So the reference angle for number 1, the reference angle is 45 degrees. Okay, so a 225 degree has a reference angle of 45 degrees. All right, go ahead and try to do number 2, 130. Figure out what quadrant you're in and determine what your reference angle would be. So what quadrant is 130? 2, yep. So it's in quadrant 2. So that would be about here. So your reference angle, again, would be this part. That's what we're looking for. So to find that in quadrant 2, it would be 180 minus 130, which is 50 degrees. Who had 50 for their reference angle? Okay, good. All right, number 3 is in what quadrant? It's in quadrant 4. So quadrant 4, so that would be about here. So the angle goes all the way there, but we want to know how far away is it to 360. So that little piece there, which is why you would do 360 minus 346. Go ahead and see what you get. Which I think you get 14. Who got 14? Yeah. And then lastly, this number 4 is in quadrant 1. So 50 degrees is also your reference angle. So any time you have an angle in quadrant 1, you don't need to subtract anything. Whatever you have is actually the reference angle also. Okay, so pull out your unit circle if you don't have it out. The last thing I want to fill out that we have not filled out yet, well, actually, we'll do that part tomorrow. Take a minute, copy down these questions, and let's see if you can answer them. So this is going back to what we did yesterday. So we'll start it. We may not be able to finish it. We'll try our best. And I put up a unit circle to help us also. So remember, sine is your x value. Cosine, sorry, I just lied to you. Sine is not x. No, it's not, children. Sine is your y value. Cosine is x. And the way I keep that in my memory is because C comes before S. So I just know that cosine comes before sine in the order pair. So I'll just make some notes here. So this is your y value. This is the x value. This is y divided by x. This is y. And this is x. So take a minute, see if you can find those 5 values. This is a big part of your quiz, which is why you have to have your unit circle memorized, because if you don't have it memorized, you won't be able to do these questions. Because I'm going to give you a blank unit circle the day of the quiz to use on the test. So you'll have to fill it in, and then as you fill it in, that's what you're going to use for your quiz. So C is the only one that requires some work. But A, B, D, and E, those should be fast. Okay, so let's go ahead and work through these together. So for the first one, the sine of 240, so we're going to find on our unit circle. This is 240 degrees. Now remember that x is cosine. So this is the order pair, x and y. Okay, so what would you write for the sine of 240 degrees? Negative root 3 over 2. That would be the sine of 240. The cosine of 180, or pi and 180 are the same. So the cosine is the x value, so that would be -1. Who had -1? I'm going to do C last, since that's the one that we have to do keep, change, flip for. 3 pi over 4. So 3 pi over 4 is here. And we need the y value because it's asking for the sine. And that's positive square root of 2 over 2. And then we have 315. So for 315, we need our x value right here. And that is 315 is positive root 2 over 2. Okay, so the last one is 5 pi over 4. Now this one is keep, change, flip, but when you see on the unit circle, the ones that I am circling right now, the tangent and cotangents, these are actually the easiest ones to do because the tangent and cotangent, or tangent and cotangent, is either going to be 1 or -1. So what do you think it's going to be for this one here? 5 pi over 4. So this one here, because I'm dividing two numbers that are both negative, is it a positive one or is it a -1? Positive one. All right, who had all 5 right? Okay, y'all, we about to get an A next week. All right, I'm going to end there. Memorize the unit circle. So take time, memorize. There's many YouTube videos on how to memorize the unit circle. We're going to do another practice run tomorrow.